Our next guest may have caught the most important pass in BYU history, and considering how many passes have been caught at BYU, that's saying a lot. He's also host of the Beyond the Game podcast. It is our pleasure to welcome to the Wise Guys former Cougar tight end Mike Lacey. Welcome.
It is so good to be with you guys. I feel like I'm on the ESPN show. Yeah, this is big time.
What do you think of our lair here?
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's beautiful.
It's cool. And how about Jeff Hansen? Does he not know his stuff?
That was amazing.
You just ask him one question and bang.
I need to pay much more attention to him and to you guys because you've led me down the path. Although I'm curious, if somebody thinks we're going to be 7.5 to 8.5 wins, and there's other teams 8.5 to 9, so they're saying we're like 4th in the Big 12, yet 10th in the country. What does that mean?
I guess that means the teams that are ahead of us are going to be
their
top 5. They're
right. Going to dominate.
We're going to have 5 teams in the playoffs. I guess 4 teams. I guess.
DJ, can you tweak Mike's mic there for a second? So look, we've got a lot to talk about, and you had 3 career receptions, and yet we are going to spend a great deal of time talking about.
Did you have to deal
your
with
impact at BYU as what we believe is the most significant catch in the history of the program, which is interesting because it doesn't even show up in the stats as a catch because it came on a 2-point conversion, right?
That's correct.
So you have to know, and we know. But to set this up, let me start by listing some of the biggest receptions in BYU history. And we'll ask folks on the live stream. They can offer some suggestions too. But this is to set the tone for the magnitude of yours. All right? So, and you can join in with us as some come to mind. But there's the Clay Brown Hail Mary in the 1980 Holiday Bowl.
That's the one I would probably vote for.
You're voting for that one, right? That's the first suggestion you're voting for. Eddie Stinnett to Steve Young to win the 1983 Holiday Bowl.
That was exciting.
Was that the
final seconds? A flea flicker.
Yeah.
What about there was Robbie's pass to Kelly Smith to win the Michigan game in '84?
That was big in the history of BYU.
Ty Detmer hit Mike Solito to take a 28-21 lead over number 1 Miami.
Oh, I remember that one.
That was a big one. How about this one? We don't think about this one too often. Brandon Doman to Jonathan Pittman to set up Doman's winning run at Utah in LaVell's final game. Right away, he's just scrambled around and he just chucked it 50 yards, and Pittman caught it like the 4-yard line.
I never seen the highlight.
Yeah, you should see that highlight. Of course, on the stream, John Beck to Johnny Harleen to beat the Utes in 2006.
That's a good one.
Look, we're just getting started.
That's a good one right there.
Max Hall to Austin Collie on 4th and 18.
Oh,
that was iconic.
Iconic.
That one's crazy because you like the how dumb the DB was. Like it takes away from how good the overall play was, because it's like for nobody in their right mind should get a conversion on 4th and 18.
No.
Right? You don't think like, oh, how good was that pass?
Except this past year against Utah. It wasn't 8 good. In fact, it was more. But anyway.
Right.
That's coming up. Let's see. There's Max Hall to McKay Jacobson to beat Oklahoma at Cowboy Stadium.
I vote for that one.
Tanner Mangum to Mitch Matthews, Hail Mary to beat Nebraska at the buzzer.
Fun.
How about Zach Wilson to Micah Simon to set up the game tying field goal at Tennessee? Remember, it was like a 64-yarder with time winding down.
And he was too slow.
We're talking about some of the biggest passes, biggest receptions in school history. Jaron Hall to Puka Nacua in the corner to beat Boise State. That crazy catch where he got the toe in.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Keaton Slovis to Chase Roberts, one-hander to beat Arkansas. Yeah.
I remember.
What was that, 38-31? Jake Retzlaff to Darius Lassiter last season to beat Oklahoma State.
Oh, so big.
And have you ever heard LaVell Edwards Stadium louder than when Lassiter broke across the goal line? I mean, it was totally improbable.
You really didn't put Andrew George's.
No, but you can include it.
Why did you do that?
Just because I listed like 20. There's like 50. Mm-hmm. Bilo wants the Andrew George.
It off earlier.
That's what I'm saying. See, that's what I mean. I think you knew I was going to come last minute, and you decided to make an audible.
All right. So the reception that may surpass all of those that we just mentioned as the most significant, not the biggest, wildest, craziest, most significant in BYU history was caught by our guest here tonight, who had more tackles and rushing attempts than actual catches in his Cougar career. And that's you. Where do you think you fit on the list of the most significant catches?
Well, if you base it off of my mother's attitude,
okay,
it's probably number one.
All right, what do you think? You caught it, and you've watched all these other receptions.
There are so many exciting ones. I don't know if mine was the most significant, and it was so ironic that I was even the guy there. I feel like I'm maybe one of the luckiest guys in the world to have been there at that time. And at that time, it was a big deal because we were at A&M. They were ranked in the top 20. It was 1979, before Brian was even born.
Yeah.
My parents were listening to it in California on KSL, and it was just crackling. And this was back when you look at the video of the game, it looks like it was in the 1930s. There was like snow on the TV, and it was not snowing in Houston. It was hot, brother.
Well, let's.
But you asked me the question. I'd put it in the top 3 or 4.
Top 3 or 4?
Yeah,
that's a good answer. Former BYU tight end Mike Lacey's on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. So let's go back to September 8th, 1979. Rice Stadium in Houston, Texas. It's not in College Station because Kyle Field's under construction. BYU's taking on number 14. Texas A&M. The game is the first live football game on KBYU Channel 11.
Wow.
Uh,
And I know that because my dad was the spotter
Nice.
up in the booth. And
Paul
we're all
James
sitting around.
and Virgil Carter.
Yeah, we're all sitting around the TV. I think Jay Monson had the TV. Paul's on the radio.
That's right.
We're all sitting around the TV watching this thing. So set the scene for us as we move into some of these plays. How big of a moment was this game for BYU?
We were looking at it from the prior year. We had so many guys on the redshirt team in 1978. This was a long time ago. But we knew the 1977 team was good. And then we were bringing a whole group of guys in that were just really raring to go. Strong athletes, many that went on to the NFL. So we knew we had the opportunity, and we knew, kind of like this BYU team in this past season, that everyone was overlooking us. And yet we were going to one of the top teams and one of the top environments in the world. So it was going to be a challenge. And that was one of the biggest things. And then Marc Wilson had an appendectomy just weeks before the season.
What's that?
His appendix burst up in the mountains. And so here he was. He's not the biggest guy in the world anyway. He's tall, but he was already pretty thin.
Right.
And then the weight that he lost because of the appendectomy, emergency appendectomy, I mean, he looked like Abraham Lincoln out on the field, but he sure played well.
And you thought maybe Jim McMahon was going to play that game, right?
Jim
he was
traveled.
redshirting.
He was redshirting, and the coach and he had agreed he's going to redshirt, but they didn't know. Maybe Mark was going to be, sidelined because of his injury. So Jim was there, ready to go.
So let's go to the fourth quarter. It's 17-10, Texas A&M. There's 52 seconds left. Mark hits Clay Brown for a touchdown. That cuts the lead to 17-16.
Now, you skipped one big part.
Uh-oh.
Tim Halverson blocked a punt. All right, we blocked Texas A&M's punt. We were going to have a long field. I mean, special teams came in. And so that was a big deal, to be on their side of the field. And Clay Brown then catching the touchdown. Sorry to interrupt.
No. You were there. So Halverson blocks the punt. Here you come. You score. It's a 1-point game. So now it's what to do next. Kick the extra point or go for a 2-point conversion to take the lead. Again, there's 52 seconds left. How did those discussions go on the sideline? You were there.
I was there. And they were rotating me back and forth at fullback. I'd already known. I heard Doug Scoville and LaVell Edwards. Doug asked him, what are we going to do when we score? We were down by 1. Mm-hmm. And LaVell said, we'll go for 2. So I already knew. And I was out on the field when we scored. So Mark called a timeout, and he went to the sideline. But I already knew, hey, we're going for 2, guys. This is great.
So did you tell the other guys while Mark was off the sideline?
No.
I know what we're doing?
It was so loud, we couldn't even hear each other. I mean, we all put our earpieces to Mark's mouth when he was telling us to play. It was A&M fans are loud even when they're in Rice Stadium.
Yeah. Okay, so you decide you're going for 2. You know you're going to get the ball. So BYU's never defeated a top 15 team. And you're on the road, and it's loud, and you can't hear. Team breaks the huddle at the 3-yard line. What's going through your mind?
Well, the crazy thing is we just put in this play weeks before. It was a fake draw pass. Who runs a draw play on the goal line?
Nobody.
Nobody. Nobody. And the funny thing was, nobody. It was the funniest thing when we look back and say, that is the most. But Marc said, I mean, Doug called, let's run a little play and we'll pass it to the corner and catch it over our shoulders. Marc didn't want to run that. So he said, no, let's run this new play we have. And Doug and LaVell said, okay, let him do it, you know. And one of the great things about this coaching staff that we had, and I think that what Kalani is emulating, is the fact they give us freedom. Yeah. They, you know, and so anyway, LaVell and Doug's, okay, Marc, if you feel that way. Well, I was the only receiver, and I'm supposed to fake like I'm blocking the middle linebacker. Hopefully he shucks me, and then I go out free. And fortunately he did. If he stuffed me, the game, you know, it was like the Taysom extra point against Utah.
Yeah.
You know, it just gets stuffed. That was
so the
setup.
Ball snapped, and you bounce off him.
The middle linebacker lets me go.
And then you get a horrible throw your way that you have to make like one of the greatest catches ever. What happened?
Well, that's what was so weird. And what's so fun hearing it from Marc's lips is I thought, oh, Jacob Green, the great future NFL all-pro guy, I figured, oh, he's hanging on Marc, and that's why Marc just barely let the ball go. Apparently, Marc told me later, Jacob Green was just in between him and me, and just, you know, he was ready to block whatever pass. Marc wasn't going to get around him on a run.
Right.
So Marc said he had to kind of toss it to the side, and then I dove. I thought I made a one-handed catch, but now the film makes it look like I caught it with two. I don't know.
Well, that's how they coach it, right?
I know, that's true.
Well, and he could stay in between you guys because of how short the field is, right?
We're on the 3-yard line.
Yeah. There's nowhere to go. So
there's no space.
Yeah.
There's no
that
space.
Makes sense.
So where was that ball? And you're looking at it, and it's a millisecond, right? But you know you have to catch it.
It's a millisecond, Dave. And when he released the ball, I mean, immediately, impossible, you know. So I just dove, and thank heavens it landed there. I was a center fielder in baseball, and so when you catch that ball, you have to sell it to the hump.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I rolled over as best I could, and the first guy that got me in the end zone that celebrated with me was Jim McMahon from the sideline.
He ran all the way in.
Nice. You know, back then they didn't, defend.
Yeah.
That rule.
They didn't care.
What was that feeling like?
I still, the joy or the fun of being in a play like that, being called, Marc calling me, this was my first game back from a mission and red shirt. So, and it was essentially an answer to prayers. I want to come back. I want to play football. And LaVell had talked to me earlier. Mike, not many guys come back and play football. Back here in the 1970s, it wasn't the automatic thing that young men did on the football team.
Right.
So,
so if you went on a mission, you wouldn't come back and play.
He was worried most of the guys wouldn't come back and be able to play. He says, Mike, you can go after your football. And I'm going to set you up with 2 people in Salt Lake City that are going to tell you how good that is. To answer your question, it was a joy. And when we got there to Provo at like 3 or 4 a.m., the bus pulls up and my car looks like I just got married. All the whipped cream and balloons, and it was fun.
Former Cougar Mike Lacey is on the Wise Guys. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. I know that the McCann celebrated that win by banging pans on the front porch in Orem because we didn't have any fireworks, so we'd have lit them off. But I remember that distinctively, and in the eyes of many, this game is when BYU transitioned into becoming a national power. Do you agree?
I really do. I think that those teams from 1979, 80, 81, when you look at the people, and the guys on my team, 24 of my teammates went on to play in the NFL, significant years. Offensive line, linebackers, defensive line, defensive backs, even defensive backs. Tom Holmoe, Bill Shefflin.
Yeah.
Running backs, Eric Lane, Homer Jones, Bill Ring. So we had some wonderful teams, and it was just a joy to be a part of them.
When you look back at your career, you only had 3 receptions in that 2-point conversion.
Which is 3 more than we had, just so you know, you're still the man.
Brian probably had some picks.
No, I have 5 interceptions.
Those were, yeah, but those,
that's more. That's more
on offense. Those weren't on offense, Below. We're talking about receptions, not interceptions.
Oh, the other way around. So, like, how does it feel to have? I don't want this to sound bad, but so little receptions, but then you have one of the most significant and important receptions, right? How do you feel as a player? That's got to feel, I don't want to say torn, but I mean, yeah, talk about that.
I've had a lot of torn feelings.
Okay.
And on this podcast, I love what you guys do. And I'm only trying to emulate and complement what you guys do. So the stories that we have in this Beyond the Game are really just supplemental to what you have. I tried to interview a young man who's been very successful in his career after playing at BYU, but his statistics were similar to mine. And I saw that he was very depressed, frustrated. He didn't want to talk about the good things, the overcoming adversity and things like that. And I saw how it ate him up. And there are times when it ate me up, but LaVell Edwards later in his career said that was one of his biggest regrets, that he moved me around to all these different positions.
Yeah.
And maybe the most consequential play in my life wasn't that Texas A&M catch, but my best friend Danny Frazier, who broke his neck in that very game, right. only the next quarter, or in the quarters before. And because of that, LaVell asked me to switch back to linebacker. And and so I have more block punt, kick return, touchdowns than I have touchdowns on offense. But I had a feud with Coach Whittingham, Fred Whittingham. I chose to go on a mission, and he had me starting that next year. And he didn't, I don't know if he forgave me, but I don't know. The real problem was that I let it fester in me. I did not handle that circumstance right. So I look back, and there were meaningful lessons that I learned. I ended up playing second string linebacker. Jim McMahon asked me to come back to offense, but then I tore the ACL, and my career was over after those years. I have no regrets. I look back at those experiences, my teammates. Nobody looks down on me except Dave. Dave, he's the only guy that's brought up, hey, Lacey, you've got single-digit carries.
Look, that's just an interviewer setting up the big catch.
I love it. And so you could call me the one-hit wonder, right?
I'd call you the wonder, the guy who caught the biggest catch in the biggest game. BYU had never even beaten a top 15 team before in school history. And you do that, and folks on YouTube, if you go there, you can see it. It is not a down and out, and the ball hits you in the numbers. It is a phenomenal catch. And it's the kind of catch most people don't make that you made.
Especially Stonehand's linebacker Lacey.
Especially
right?
Stonehand linebacker.
Stonehands.
In that setting, and of course, the team finishes 11-1 that year, ranked 13th in the country.
We lost to Indiana in a game that was the reverse of the SMU game.
Yeah, and a field goal that went awry at the end. I was at that game. And from my angle, I couldn't tell if we made it or not, but we had Indiana fans around us, and they let us know. But you go 11-1, and then the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year, and then all of a sudden there's a national championship, and then there's a Heisman Trophy, and now there's the Big 12. I mean, it's all linked. And Giff and Gary would all say that there was stuff before, which is true. But the 79 game, the 2-point conversion, and that catch to beat A&M, in the eyes of many, was the start.
I'm grateful I was there. Yeah. And I'm grateful that they called my number. And I'll guarantee you, there were many other guys on that team that were just as prepared. I was fortunate. Doug Scoville ran us to death all summer long. Jim and Mark and Steve Young, and there were 7 other quarterbacks because that was when Steve was like the 7th.
Yeah.
Doug Scoville wasn't going to start a lefty who ran. You know?
No. That's not how he rolled.
So I'm just grateful to be part of those wonderful teams, even though Brian wasn't even born yet.
Well, I mean, you see what you build? Like, I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for that catch.
And I'm grateful that you were. I mean, it's fun to have this brotherhood with all of our teammates.
Right. It is.
And the people associated with the program.
So 11-1, you finish 13th. Last year, the Cougs go 11-2, finish 13th.
Mm-hmm.
So here they come this fall. What are your expectations for the months ahead?
By the way, one of the great ironies to me was that our Indiana game was lost on a punt that they shanked that hit one of our guys that was in the wall, and they scored on it. Does that resemble anything from this past season?
The nightmare of Kansas.
The nightmare of Kansas. That was Indiana. And Lee Corso thought that, they blocked the punt or something, but no, they did.
That's the worst way to go out. Out of all the ways to lose a game, that is the worst way.
And we still had it, and I love Brent Johnson. I love when he talks about, that unfortunate miss of a field goal. But Dave, I forgot your question. CTE, brother.
See, he gets me. He gets me.
I do.
What do you expect this fall?
I love this team.
Yeah.
Honestly, as a football player, I'm mostly the laissez-faire kind of guy. I like the coaching that lets me and the other coaches and the players have freedom enough to go out and work hard. And so the disciplinarianism that we had before Kalani seemed like it was missing, and I worried as an ex-player. But I see this team gelling around their desires, this love and learn. Okay, they're going to love and learn, but now it's humble and hungry along with love and learn. I love what they're doing. I think that they're building a culture that's a hardworking, accountable group, and I know these guys really want it. They're in a tough league. Texas Tech that's one of the teams that could be a loss if we, have a bad punt or something. So
it could be a loss if we go down there and play great.
It could be because they're so good.
Yeah.
But I still expect them to really do well. I will be so excited if we make it into the playoffs. And sure, the big national pun is, Ohio State will clean the field with you guys, right? But no. I mean, we could have and should have been there. I baited the team this year when I asked them, that wasn't fair, was it? It's on us. They say, I love that. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Beyond the Game and this podcast that you're doing. That's got some great stories, and you do a great job with that. Tell us about why you're doing it.
Now, that's a good question. That's the one I don't know. A couple of years ago, I had the idea. There's so many games. The Marc Wilson idea of the appendectomy, and every season, every team, every player has things that happen in the background that if we knew, I think we can apply those things to life and to our families, to our work, to our communities. And so I love to bring these stories out to help these people tell, even though we've heard them. It's funny that even Mark, a play that I was the other guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know why that ball was out there until he told me in this last podcast.
Well, it's fun to interview people. There's nothing more unnatural than being interviewed, especially with cameras and lights and recordings and all that stuff. But once you slip past that, it's the way you get to know people, And I learned in the news business that the follow-up is the question. Every politician would already memorize what they were going to tell you, and then when they're done, you go, well, why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, then you find out how they feel. And it's the same thing. Yeah. For you, it's like, you caught that ball and you're laying in the end zone and all that stuff. What was that like?
Oh, my.
And only you can answer that. And then all of a sudden, the juices come back from the moment, and then you take us there, and we can feel the magnitude of what you did. And that's what I love about it.
So do I. In fact, my career was in finance. I was a portfolio manager. The most fun I had was sitting down with people and finding out what drove them, what their desires were, what their fears were. And I thought after I retired, hey, I can do that with this, you know. And so, and I saw you guys, and it looks fun, you know.
It's fun. It is.
It's fun. It's fun because you're with people talking about stuff. Kihi Akina is going to join us in a minute, and we've never talked to him in our life, but we're going to have a good time. He's the one of the best golfers in America that's coming to BYU.
I aspire to be a good golfer someday. I live next to the Lundells, who Carson Lundell is probably a friend of his, and I mean, I will get down on my knees and say, please just touch me and help me hit a ball right, you know.
Let's finish with 5 questions for Mike Lacey, presented by StrategySquare.co. These are rapid fire. We're going to get to know you really fast.
Oh, my.
And really well. Bilo, you ready?
Rapid fire meaning like it's 2-minute drill. We have no timeouts.
CTE included,
yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Be careful. We might have to edit.
You heard that right? You say you might have to edit it. Okay, all right, here we go.
Live stream.
Favorite sports movie?
Oh, Remember the Titans. What a great movie.
It's a great one.
Favorite singer or band?
I'm from the era where the Beatles. I mean, I saw them in Shea Stadium on the TV, and I thought, wow, these guys are cool.
All right. There's no shame in the Beatles. That's awesome.
I love the Beatles.
Okay.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Breakfast cereal. You know, this is boring, but frosted shredded wheat. You know, whatever.
Is that like?
Isn't that terrible?
Is that like Frosted Flakes?
No, it's maybe a tiny.
It's like
bit more
Frosted
healthy.
Flakes, only wheat.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Instead of corn,
frosted shredded.
He's right. He's right.
I love that you added the frosted. That brings it to life.
Well, you know, shredded wheat sounds boring.
Right. Frosted shredded wheat. Okay.
Favorite thing about Marc Wilson?
Favorite thing about Marc Wilson, his humility. I mean, contrast him with Jim McMahon. I love them both.
Yeah.
And yet and not that Jim was braggadocious. He wasn't. He was also a humble guy. But literally, Marc Wilson could play Abraham Lincoln. I think he has the same kind of wisdom.
Abraham Lincoln wisdom for Marc Wilson.
I think so.
I've never heard that as a compliment of all compliments.
Yeah. You should get a shirt made.
That's good. Hey,
get that quote.
Who threw a tougher pass to catch, McMahon or Wilson?
Steve Young.
I was gonna say Steve. the lefty spin.
Right? You had to move your hands differently.
Steve was the.
I'm gonna say both of those guys. They threw differently. Marc Wilson and Jim McMahon.
Right.
Jim had a little more zip, but it still came in soft. You know, so
and Wilson was kind of up top,
and he came in soft too. Both of them were, to me, easy to catch.
Yeah.
And then Steve, you know, you had to go like this.
Steve looks like you.
And he threw it well. Nothing against Steve.
It looked like if you have a lefty throw at you, it looks like you're in a different reality. Like it's so awkward.
Thank you.
That's
what I told Steve. I said, come on, man.
It's the most awkward thing, especially like as a corner, like breaking on it. I'm like,
and then it hits you, and it feels like it. Yeah. Unless you're ready for it, you had to have your hands moving.
It's the worst like football experience a player could have.
Brian, we might have the longest answer to one of these five.
Wait. All I know is your quarterbacks were Jim McMahon, Marc Wilson, and Steve Young. You won the lottery.
You can't miss.
That's awesome. All right, that's good.
Humility. That was long. We got like 10 seconds left. Number 5, last one. Favorite BYU moment?
Could be anything.
Favorite BYU moment? Watching Robbie Bosco throw that pass for that, what ended up being a national championship, and feeling like, hey, all these sequential years before that built up to that wonderful time.
Which they did.
They did.
So that means you're a part of that.
It was fun.
You started it.
It's fun to be part. Well,
you started it by beating Texas A&M with a circus catch in 1979.
I closed my eyes, Dave.
Did you close your eyes?
No.
There's no way.
No, I didn't.
I still can't believe you got it. This is because it's not because you couldn't catch. It's like that those balls don't get caught.
So that was a crazy throw, but I'm fortunate, lucky, fun.
All right, you can find the Beyond the Game podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to be a guest coming up. Who else you got on the docket?
Well, I met with Trey Alexander and LaMason Waller. They're
Fantastic.
great young men. Joe Seminoff, maybe one of your teammates. Was Joe on the team, fullback? We've got Jake Retzloff coming on pretty soon.
Awesome.
I want to meet AJ DeMonsa. Can you guys introduce me?
Yeah, we'll introduce you to him.
Okay.
He was great. He was here last week.
You got to be excited about him.
All right, you can see that wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much for
Dave.
coming over here.
And Brian,
hanging out with us. Mike Lacey, tight end for BYU. Let's see, when there's tight ends, there's Clay Brown, there's Gordon Hudson, there's Chad. You just go down the line. And you know what? Don't forget Mike Lacey in there. One of the biggest catches in the history of the program. So thank you again for being with us. Mike Lacey, 1975, and then 78 and 79 into 80, and then again the ACL injury. But hey, you know what? If you just can make one catch, then make it that one.